Hello, it's time for Melissa Reed's Avatar. I apologize for the very long hiatus. My life got a little bit away from me there for a while, but now I'm back and ready to start Chapter 8 of Avatar. Here we go. There were 7, including himself, each a high-ranking member of the Vedic Assembly. Each of the other 6 as openly anxious as a Vedic could be while still maintaining some semblance of piousness. Shouldn't that be piety? I don't know. It all rested in the hands of the prophets, after all, though to look at their pinched faces one might think otherwise. This is Molly, by the way. Say hello, Molly. One might think, in fact, that the prophets had deserted them, leaving each alone with his or her own fears. Such uncertainty because of what's happened. How difficult it must be. Yavir Linjaran understood the pain of doubt, and he ached to see it in others, particularly the 6 other men and women in the great chamber. That there was no great change coming. That there was great change coming, there was no question, but the prophets would provide, as they always had. The man who called the meeting, Vedic Arundel, seated himself at the head of the long stone table, nodding to the attendant Ranjan to close the doors of the great hall. The incense-scented chamber was cold, the meeting called too hastily for a single fire to have been built, although the secret nature of their small alliance surely had something to do with it. The traditional fires were lit only for the assembly entire, and there would be no evidence of this meeting once it was dismissed. Seated here were the 7 most influential, most doctrinally inclined, the men and women who would use their powers of persuasion to carry the rest of the assembly in the direction best for Bajor. Kai Wynn's sudden disappearance had necessitated the formation of the unnamed council, with First Minister Shakar off-world, lobbying the Federation on Bajor's behalf. The people needed guidance, and not the endlessly turbulent sort provided by the assembly entire, with its share of politicians and sycophants and deals. Here sat the careful hands that would lead the way. The shared anxiety on their faces saddened Yavir, reminding him of the passage in Akorum's A Poet's Flight. To doubt their wisdom is to deny them the pleasures of due faith, and to deny oneself the joy of being, and being to be loved. When the doors had rumbled closed, Aaron began to speak. I thank each of you for coming with such little notice. I'm sure you understand why I've called this session. Before we discuss our options, I would ask your impressions of the crisis before us. Vedic Frelin Sila, a small, highly opinionated woman, was the first to place her hands on the table. For reasons of poor health, she had refused to be considered for the recent nomination to Kai, much to everyone's relief. No one wanted another Wyn Adami, and of all the possible candidates, Frelin was easily the most politically prone. Vedic Frelin, Aaron said, opening the discussion. Early this morning, Deep Space Nine was attacked, she said, her statement of the obvious a clear sign that she was warming to a speech. The last report I received from our contacts within the militia told of 61 dead in all, not including the crew of the Guardian starship or the wounded, and severe damage to the power core, making it, I believe, the deadliest offensive yet waged against the station. Even in time of war there was not so much damage, nor so many lives lost. My firm conviction is that the heresy was destroyed during the battle, and therefore that the battle itself was sanctioned by the prophets. Did the attackers not travel through the temple gates? I put forth that we have acted with unnecessary haste, presuming too much, and then we should now await further guidance from the prophets. Yavir saw, with no real surprise, that everyone now had their hands on the table, except for himself. He wanted to hear the opinions of the others before speaking. After all, it was likely they would look to him for the last word, and though he did not consider himself to be gifted politically, he knew that every notion should be heard. No one liked to feel dismissed, even if their ideas were rejected in the end. He accepted the fact of their acquiescence with no pretensions of humility, just as he accepted the reality that he would one day be Kai, Perhaps not after the upcoming election, but it was inevitable. His path was clear. This guy doesn't have much doubt. The discussion went around the table, Aaron calling each Vedic by name, each stating his or her thoughts in turn, no two alike. Skio Marsis believed that the matter should be open to the assembly, or at least the part of it that they could openly claim. Kylie Shan wanted to consult the Orb of Contemplation. Sinchante Jin, the Orb of Wisdom. Bellis Namani insisted that they send a covert team to the station to gather data, and Aaron put forth the idea of allowing Kira Nerys into their confidence. She was, he pointed out, a devout woman, though Vedics Kylie and Bellis disagreed strongly with the idea, reminding them all of how difficult Kira had proved to be in the past. The discussion, if not heated, was quickly becoming antagonistic. Gone were the traditional formalities of hands on table. We mustn't trust any information we don't collect for ourselves, Bellis argued. Isn't it obvious? And Kira knew Istani from Singha. For all we know, they were acting in collaboration. And you think she wouldn't come to the assembly for confirmation if she had talked with Istani? Aaron asked. We need Kira. She runs the station and the people trust her. Granted, she can be obstinate, but her faith and loyalty to Bajor aren't in question. Faith, perhaps not, but loyalty? You know the stories of her and Kai Wynn, Kylie interrupted. His face flushed. Forget about Kira and Istani, Freyland said. The prophets will show us the way when the time is right. Yavir had heard enough. He placed his hands palms up on the table and closed his eyes, breathing deeply, turning his face to the high ceiling, to the sky beyond. Their intentions are true and right, but they argue their own opinions. What is the way? How can I be a vessel of your wishes? He listened to the small voice at his deepest core, the voice of his Pa, vaguely aware that the debate around him was finished, the angry words giving way to silence. When he opened his eyes, he saw that everyone watched him. Vedic Yavir, you wish to speak? Aaron asked. His tone was hushed and respectful. Thank you, I do. Yavir smiled, gazing at each face with warmth. We all want to do what we think is right, because we love the prophets, and we love the people of Bajor. I know that each of us feels that the prophets speak to us through our emotions, but I ask that we set aside anger and dissent at this moment, and meditate on what we share, on our love. He had their full attention. Only a few years ago, he would have marveled at the concept that he, Yavir Linjarin, would someday lead such important people through a crisis, but all he wanted now was to share his vision. We have too often become entrenched in politics, but simply loving is also not enough. Like all matters, this is one that calls for action as well as faith. As we have all agreed, the heresy must be contained, but our course so far has not been worthy of us, and I feel regret for what has happened. I grieve, I feel shame, but I know too that the prophets forgive us, because they know our hearts, and know that we mean only to express our love. They were smiling back at him now. They understood, and it made him happy to see the self-doubt washed away, to see their faces shining with restored purpose. They hadn't forced Istani Rayla to run away, after all. What would you propose? Aaron asked. As you all know, I once served on the station during my days in the militia. I could approach Kira and talk with her as a friend, but discreetly, a day or two from now. I won't reveal so much as to burden her with the kind of decisions we're facing, of course. But if the tome is on board, and she has knowledge of it, I'm certain she would tell me. They were nodding, pleased with the moderate and reasonable plan, and with having the immediate responsibility for what to do taken from them. It made him feel cynical to think such a thing, but he could not pretend blindness. Yavir knew each of them to be a worthy Vedic, but he also knew that they were missing having a Kai to make the difficult decisions. I know it's asking a lot, but if you would place your trust in me, I believe that I could further our interests here, and thus the interests of all of Bajor, he finished, fully aware that their trust was already his. He didn't enjoy playing the politician, but there was really no choice, and he was deserving of their confidence. He had been chosen, after all. As they gazed at him lovingly, he thought of the emissary of all he had done for Bajor, and all that Bajor was becoming because of the emissary's work. I won't let it fall apart because of some heretic scratching. I owe that to the emissary for choosing me, and I owe it to the prophets for their boundless love, and to all of Bajor because I am here to serve. The seven were in agreement as all as one. Yavir would go to Deep Space Nine and make things right. He would find the heresy and burn it, and scatter the ashes so that no one else could be tainted by its evil ever again. Hopefully, no one else would have to die. He would pray for it anyway. And that is our introduction to Vedek Yavir, who I think is I was going to say the main villain of this first part of the relaunch DS9 books, but I'm not sure if that's actually correct. He is an antagonist, and he's very different from Kai Wynn in that he's a zealot, where Kai Wynn was just completely self-serving. And personally, I find Yavir much scarier because he believes so absolutely that he's right. Yavir actually appeared in the series, in the episode Rapture, which is one of my favorite episodes of DS9. We just see the back of him when Sisko is coming down the promenade, having had visions, and is speaking to various people, telling them things he knows. He talks to one couple about their harvest. He tells the admiral that his estranged son will forgive him. And he tells a member of the Bajoran militia to go home, that he doesn't belong there on DS9. And we don't see this guy, except from the back. We never see his face. I don't know the name of the extra that played him, but that is Yavir Lanjarin. So, I think that's pretty cool. Anyway, this is ominous. It was a long time ago for me, but Istani Rayla was murdered on the station before it was attacked by the Jem'Hadar. She was friends with Kira. Kira was obviously very upset, and in the very beginning of the book, Istani Rayla gave a prophecy, piece of, I guess, a scroll or page or something from an ancient book of prophecy from Valhalla to Jake that had him believing that he could find his father, because he's not accepting that his father is gone, which is not surprising if you've seen The Visitor, another great episode. So, I don't really have much to say. This was kind of a transitional chapter. The attack on the station is done, and we're introduced to Yavir and his preoccupation with this heresy, which will be revealed later on in the book. And so, I think next time, chapter 9, hopefully head back to the station, see what's going on in the aftermath of the attack. Till then.